StockMinute.com. I'm Brian Johnson. New week of trading, and what starts this week? Earnings. Yes, we have come into now earnings season. Alcoa kicks it off tomorrow. And going up, going down, anybody's guess at this point. It could be, because we're so stretched, that we see a buy the rumor, sell the news type of events within a lot of these stocks. It could be that we just continue to do this consolidation climb into and maybe even out of the earnings season before it's all said and done with. I think earnings could potentially be very good for a lot of sectors. I think the financial sector may report pretty well. Is it all built in? Anybody's guess. If there's some big surprises, I don't think it's going to matter. I think the markets will move up on that kind of information. So when you're trading, I highly recommend, and I always recommend this during earnings season, that you don't try to hold over earnings. If you're in a stock, make sure you know when it reports. So if you're in Alcoa and they report tomorrow night, I don't recommend holding that stock overnight. A lot of people like to play earnings because they're, hoping and praying that they get into it and that all of a sudden it's going to shoot up the very next day and they're going to make a whole bunch of money. That's just gambling, and if you're into that, fantastic. But trading is not gambling if you know what you're doing. We just stack the odds in our favors, and that is not stacking the odds. So I would caution you against doing that, and no, that is not a technique that I use ever in my trading, nor do I teach it to any of my students. So I highly recommend that you avoid that at all costs. A company can come out with fantastic earnings and still drop like a rock. You just don't know what's going to happen. So let's keep in line with what we have been doing. Notice, move up, sideways, move up, sideways, move up, sideways. I have to continue to think to be a little bit more neutral to bullish coming up here, or at least a move up or sideways, go figure, into and through the earnings season. So we want to watch that very, very closely. If there's any major surprises to the downside, we'll start to see it as it accumulates to the downside. Now, if that happens, I don't think it's going to take very long for us to recognize exactly where maybe a good meat of this earnings season is going to end up going, and that would be down in that case if there was if it's either a buy the rumor, sell the news, or if there's just a lot of bad surprises within the earnings season. I think we're going to find that out pretty quickly within the markets. Within the next week or two, I would say, by the time Apple reports, which I think is the 18th, so not that far off. Dow Daily, let's take a look at this, and you can see we had that nice move down on Friday, but once again, bulls bought it right back up. Now, you know what this is? It's another pullback. It's no different than this pullback right here. It's no different than this little sideways action we had here, which is a high base and a high base, and now a move up and a pullback. We saw this all along here. Pullback, move up, pullback, move up, pullback, move up, pullback, move up. I know, it's like, as I say this all the time to my students, lather, rinse, repeat, man. It's just the same thing over and over. We're seeing it over here now. For the time being, this is just a pullback. We're really watching this 20-day moving average and ultimately a drop below this line down here. Then we can start talking about some real potentially bearish action within the markets. Hard to talk about that right now, only because earnings seasons have been so good to the market so far. NASDAQ, same situation. Look at this nice consolidation we saw here, and then a move up. Consolidate for a little bit, a move up, now just kind of moving sideways here. Expect more of the same, this slow grind to the upside if it's going to happen. We might have a day or two where we move very violently up or violently down, something to that effect, but we're very, very stretched up in this area right here. We put a topping candle in on Friday, but it's only a potential topping candle to me. I'm not looking at this as any kind of indication of which way the direction of the market's going to go. Why? Because we're coming into earnings season. If earnings season ends up good, guess what? This is going to be a who cares candle. It's just going to be a who cares candle. So you can't base your trading just off what kind of candle is left at the end of a day, because this gives us no indication of anything right now anyway at all. Still watching the 20-day moving averages. Keep your eyes on those. Weekly, same type of a thing. A nice, big, strong move up after a move up and a little bit of what was a high base or a pullback here. Big move up again in the markets itself coming up and starting the year off. So will we get follow through on this? That's what we're watching. We're watching to see if we can get some push up and follow through on this particular chart. SPX 60 minute doing the same thing. Here was that consolidation here, and a bigger consolidation here. This is just a wider trading range right here. So moves up above here, moves down below here for more aggressive type traders. Want to be very careful once again to the long side because we are very stretched. Continue this whole strategy of take your profits to the upside when you get them, because these moves down happen pretty quickly. Take your profits to the upside if you get them, and these moves down are happening pretty violently. Now they're not breaking anything yet, but that time will come. That time will come. Until then, if you want to play it long, great. Just take your profits when you can get them. If you get spooked, go ahead. Take your profits. Call it good. Don't be afraid to do that. And we're waiting for breaks back below here, and ultimately what? Yeah, the 20-day moving average. We haven't even retested it yet. Looking the same way as what we saw on the Dow, and that's this is just a pullback to me right here. Same as what we saw here. Up, back, up, back, up, back. See this? Same concept over here. Watch for breaks below here, then maybe we have something to talk about. And really I think everybody's going to be paying attention to Alcoa tomorrow. If Alcoa, I'm not sure if they report before or after. If they report after the bell, we may see kind of a slow day for the most part tomorrow. Maybe an up or a down day of within probably, I would guess, maybe 5 to 8 points at the most. But point being, we're going to continue to watch this 20-day moving average, and then moves above here could creep themselves up a little bit coming into, like I said, that earnings season that we're now starting. Weekly looking very extended as well, but still up. It's moving up. What else can you look at? The point is, if you're not long from back in here, you're losing money. It's really the long and the short of it all. So this thing continues to grind its way upward, doing very well. This beautiful hold of the 200 has led to a lot of bullishness within the markets themselves. The VIX itself, okay, we've been talking about this. Kind of wandering its way down after a big pop, but now we've managed to stay above this blue line 2 weeks in a row. The only conundrum now is that we're coming into earnings season. All right, so we have a nice hold of this. I love the fact that it held this upper line for not 1 but 2 weeks. That's fantastic. That's actually bullish. And if the VIX gets bullish, the markets will move down. The only issue I have is I'm not real big on technical analysis when it comes to the VIX. So I'm really looking at this in a broader picture, and that is, well, gee, look, we've been down towards the 15 area. Now we're up in the 17 area, which means we've got plenty of room to move back to the downside, which means the markets have plenty of room to move back to the upside. It's this consolidation down here in this lower area that I'm really focusing on. And the fact is, there is no fear in the markets right now. Nobody's concerned about any of this stuff coming up, not even into earnings season. It makes sense coming into Christmas that no one would be concerned, but coming into earnings season, it's the same story. No one seems all that concerned right now. So if the VIX starts to pop and the markets start to drop, well, that's got the pop and drop. How about that? You get a pop in the VIX, a drop in the markets. Now, okay, now we're getting confirmation. Now we're getting something I can actually chew on for a while. Look at Apple and its strength. This is very common of Apple into an earnings, by the way. Move up, consolidate, strong movement since we started January. Big movement. And I would be very surprised not to see this kind of continue. Even if the markets drop, watch for Apple to drop, but only mildly maybe, as it tries to hold itself up coming into earnings season. I'd be surprised if we could get Apple back below 325 or even 330 maybe coming into an earnings season with it only with it reporting about a week away. You may see some continued pressure upwards with the Apple, which is going to take us right back into the 340ish area I've been talking about here for a while. Why don't this thing advance? There we go. So here's the move up on the daily. Like I said, maybe a pullback, maybe a little bit of a drop, a couple of days at least, but I'm still focusing on this overhead area right around the 340. This overhead blue line is just could be measurement for me. We could get way above that. At this point, we're into uncharted territory in Apple, so it's hard to know exactly where overhead resistance is at. You can only make your best guess at this moment. My best guess is this overhead blue line, which is going to rest right around that 340-ish area if it creeps up into that mark. Another one that I wouldn't be holding over earnings. Apple has been known to gap up violently and gap down violently after earnings. Even though it reported very, very good earnings, it goes both ways. FAS 60 minutes, same type of thing. These financials could get a little crazy. I went and added some new lines, but I think these three lines in particular really start to show us the bigger picture here. And it's been consolidating in and around these lines very, very well. Hit this upper line here, bounce down, test the lower, hit the upper, through the lower, test through the middle. I should call this the middle line. Through it, now back up to test it. So we still have some opportunities for some trading, but I would let it get back down below about 27.50, 27.25ish to the downside, and then probably back above 30 or $30.50 before I'd start looking too long. But right now, this just looks on a daily time frame like it's sitting in a pullback moment. That's all it looks like right now. This 27.50 looks good. 27 looks really good for you swing traders that might want to hold for a few days. This might be your opportunity. Otherwise, back above this 30-ish area, that would be your long opportunity. FAZ doing the same thing. Hitting the lower line, middle line, lower line, through the middle line, back to test the middle line. So we're seeing very good movement with these lines down in this area. We get any kind of pushes up into this area. You're looking for any kind of movement back over and above 940-ish. Now above 940 for a more aggressive entry. And back below this 870, 860 area, you might be able to squeeze 10, 15, 20 cents out of it to the low side, but you got to watch this lower blue line. In the bigger picture, you want to watch this really, really big lower blue line down here if we start to head down. Any pushes to the upside for you swing traders, I'd really let it get above 960-ish or so. Let it clear this 20-day moving average before you start looking at any kind of a buy and hold type of a moment. If it'll take off after that and get above 1060, then you're in business, and you've really got something to be talking about at that point. Okay, that'll do it for today's video. A little longer than what I normally do, but I want to talk to you a little bit about the earnings season. Make sure you guys are at least aware of what I'm going to be looking at coming into the earnings season, and we'll see you again tomorrow night.